Pro Wrestling Weekly. For over 20 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment radio talk.
Is cooking.
WBCB presents Pro Wrestling Weekly,
the longest-running pro wrestling radio talk show in the history of terrestrial radio.
And he's obviously Michael Cole.
Call in with a question or comment at 215-949-3232 or 888-922-2149.
You really do sound like a
grizzled old vet. Is that where you were going with there?
Yes.
To not get you in trouble?
Oh, I'll get in trouble at some point, believe me. I'll do something.
Well, to keep you out of trouble in this case, at least.
And now, here are your hosts of Pro Wrestling Weekly, Fearon Derry and Lucas DeSangro.
Ooh, I'm getting good at this radio thing.
Yeah! It only took you 5.5 years.
I'm not good at it yet. I'm starting.
Yeah.
Only slightly.
Slowest escalator upward.
Shut up!
There's the sound of the bell, and we are set to go. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Or at least this week, I should say, Pro Wrestlemania Weekly. Yes, it is Wrestlemania weekend. The excitement is abound. Fearon Derry here with you, flying solo for various reasons. Lucas did mention last week that he would be up in North Jersey doing Capital Wrestling stuff, and I'm holding my promise and not slagging him on that. And Mitch, well, for various reasons, let's just say that he has the day off. It's going to be a long weekend. I figured, give him a chance to rest up for the big night tomorrow night. But we're going to get into a lot here, including the predictions starting to go wrong. I'll have all the predictions squared away for a litany of matches coming up here for WrestleMania 35. But first, we're going to take things down in a comedic way a notch here, as we're going to talk about the elephant in the room that came this past Sunday, courtesy of Last Week Tonight and John Oliver, whom you remember previously from The Daily Show on Comedy Central. Well, he has his own show on HBO, and he took a good portion of his show to talk about WWE, and not a lot of it was all that bright and shiny heading into WrestleMania weekend.
Let's take a look at how the WWE does business and how it treats its wrestlers. And before we start, you can't talk about the WWE without talking about its chairman and CEO, Vince McMahon, because he is incredibly powerful. Vince bought the company from his dad and has since overseen its meteoric ascent into the mainstream. Because before he came along, wrestling was splintered into fiefdoms around the country, all of which had their own broadcasts. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Vince McMahon gradually eliminated or absorbed his competitors, and now one giant company basically holds a monopoly on the industry, and it's impossible to overstate just how involved Vince is. He's not just CEO, he oversees storylines, scripts, everything, even playing a fictionalized version of himself as the show's overarching villain, although his choices of how to dramatize that have been pretty questionable, whether it's him forcing female wrestlers to strip, or beating up his supposed illegitimate son Hornswoggle, or dropping the ultimate racial slur as part of a comedic skit. That is rough to watch. And remember, he's in complete control of those scripts. No one is making him do that. And while, yes, he is playing a villain there are many other ways that can be achieved. Darth Vader was a great villain. Not once did he drop the N-word. But while the character Vince is an it's important to know that the real Vince is also an and many fans legitimately hate him because while the WWE has made him a billionaire, many wrestlers say he's treated them terribly. Just listen to Bret Hitman Hart, one of the biggest wrestlers of all time, speaking about his former boss.
Vince McMahon has always had this mentality about treating wrestlers like circus animals. All these wrestlers that have broke their backs making this living for years end up with nothing when it's over. And then they sort of take you out back and they put a slug in the back of your head and dump you out. And that's the life of a professional wrestler.
Now, that may sound extreme to you, but Hart has good reason to be angry. His own brother Owen died wrestling for Vince. And Hart is frankly far from alone in voicing grievances about his former employer.
And many grievances we would certainly hear, as Oliver would go on to talk about, well, the labeling of WWE superstars and how they work under Vince McMahon. And I know it's been talked about in hush whispers and brought about in other news stories, but now being resurfaced again here, well, we'll let him talk a little bit more about it.
The shocking thing about McMahon and his company is the extent to which he shielded himself from responsibility for his wrestlers' welfare. And the main way that he's done this is actually pretty simple, because while you might reasonably think that the wrestlers employed by him are his employees, they're actually not. They're merely independent contractors. Which, as former wrestler Jesse Ventura pointed out on Howard Stern, is just insane.
How are they self-employed when you're signed exclusively?
Right.
You can't work for nobody else.
It's a monopoly.
Yeah. They tell you when and where you'll work. They tell you who you'll work. They can totally control your life.
And you're an independent contractor.
And yet they call you an independent contractor. How has the government allowed them to get away with that for 35 to 40 years?
Yeah, he's got a point there. An independent contractor is someone that you might hire for a specific limited task, like a plumber or an accountant. Wrestlers aren't either of those things, apart from this wrestling plumber and this wrestling accountant.
For context, he had put up a picture of wrestling plumber T.L. Hopper and wrestling accountant Erwin R. Shyster, or IRS. Moving on, back to the clip.
But the vast majority are totally different. And as independent contractors, wrestlers are exempt from most discrimination and occupational safety laws. They also don't get paid annual leave, pensions, or health insurance. And I would argue that when you look at the Department of Labor and the IRS's specific criteria for independent contractors, it's a complete joke to think that they apply to Vince's wrestlers. For instance, the IRS states that independent contractors should be free to work when and for whom they choose. Well, Vince's wrestlers sign exclusive contracts, so that's complete bull. The guidelines also say that someone's probably not an independent contractor if the success or continuation of a business depends to an appreciable degree on the services they provide. Now, I guess the question there is, are wrestlers essential to world wrestling entertainment? It's a good question. I mean, it's not called World Totally Empty Ring Entertainment, so that might be a clue. In fact, if I might quote the company's own website, WWE performers are the company's greatest asset. Without our performers, WWE would not exist. And look, maybe when wrestlers might work years ago for multiple different organisations, it made sense to call them contractors. But now that WWE has a chokehold on this industry, it's just clearly not true anymore.
Now, there are a lot of humorous things that had to be taken out of this for on-air context, as we certainly don't have the language liberties that HBO does. So obviously a lot of things are going to be lost in edit and translation, but the main point sticks home, humor aside, of the challenges that wrestlers are facing, and also bringing a comparative point to other professional sports.
While literally every major sports league has an off-season for athletes to recover, the WWE works its wrestlers year-round, multiple times a week, both on TV and in untelevised so-called house shows. And big stars may be able to command big money for that, but not every wrestler is a big star. And whenever we've gotten glimpses of wrestlers' contracts, they contain some astonishing clauses. One says if a wrestler is unable to wrestle for as little as 6 weeks because of an injury, the company can terminate their contract, while another releases the company from all liability for damage resulting in permanent injury or death, even if caused by its own negligence, which is a crazy thing for McMahon to put in a contract.
The McMahon bashing would certainly continue, and a little bit of it brought on by himself, and not just from dropping an M-bomb. Here's a clip that is going back to 2003 from HBO's Real Sports, where McMahon, in a face-to-face interview, got a little too up close and personal, and in the physical form kind of gave a reason why his current XFL venture is known as Alpha Entertainment.
Wrestlers' bodies regularly get smashed up and undergo general wear and tear, damage that's cumulative and can last a lifetime. But McMahon doesn't provide health insurance for his wrestlers for anything other than injuries that occur inside the ring. In fact, the extent to which he's denied any responsibility for their welfare is astonishing. Just watch him respond to a question years ago about wrestler deaths.
Do you have a reason why these people would be dying under the age of 45?
Why don't you ask yourself that question? I mean, why are you indicating that's my responsibility? These people are dead because...
I'm asking you if it's in any way, shape, or form falls on your shoulders.
I would accept no responsibility whatsoever for their untimely deaths, none whatsoever. As far as, and you've got that little look on your face like,
Yeah,
geez, Vince, how can you possibly say that?
Well, but none whatsoever. I mean, they wrestled for you. They were part of your organization. They worked a couple of hundred nights a year for you.
As the reporter continued to make his point, Vince would mockingly make almost a baby crying-like face and then go to slap the reporter's notes out of his hand. Don't be a bully, Vince. Be a star. Way to go.
And when you take all of this together, with wrestlers working as independent contractors in a monopolised industry, largely free from meaningful oversight and able to be fired at any time, you wind up with an environment with huge potential for unsafe conduct. Before Lance McNaught died at 29 of heart failure while struggling with addiction to painkillers, he spoke of the pressure that he felt to work through injury, saying, everybody knows that if you get hurt, you work through it because you'll lose your spot. And another top wrestler, CM Punk, has questioned the advice that he was given by a WWE doctor following an incident in the ring.
I got hit with something and it rung my bell and I got a concussion. But we were leaving for Europe the next day. So Doc was leaning on me going, do you have a concussion or can you go to Europe kind of thing? And I was just like, you pigs, I'll go to Europe, whatever. That's on me. That's my fault. I'm dry heaving after every match. I'm either puking for real or I'm just dry heaving because I don't have anything in my stomach. Doc's like, oh, you're sick. Here's a Z-Pack. They Z-packed me to death so much that in December I my pants on a SmackDown.
That, of course, coming from the Art of Wrestling podcast from Colt Cabana, and I know we talked about that. It feels like a while ago. It's because it was probably like 5 years ago now. Where does the time go? What was that, Thanksgiving of 2014?
Now, the company will say that they've completely transformed in recent years, and they have taken some positive steps, like banning chair shots to the head and introducing concussion protocols, although CM Punk's experience probably suggests that there may be room for some significant improvement there. But some of the other steps they've taken under their talent wellness program are a little underwhelming, like the fact that they now have annual physical examinations. That's just nothing. I have to take one of those every year to host this show, and I've never once exploded through this table. The program also provides for things like cardiovascular and brain testing, which is nice, although remember, they're still responsible for their own health insurance. And while the company says it pays for addiction treatment for former wrestlers, that doesn't really address the underlying issues that get them hooked on pain medication in the first place. And the tragic thing is, some have reluctantly had to drag their bodies back to the WWE because they have no other financial option. Rowdy Roddy Piper continued wrestling into his 40s and 50s, and just listen to him explain why.
Wrestling, it has a tremendous entrance plan. You come in as, boy, here you are, you rock and roll and everything's wonderful. It's got no exit plan.
And Rowdy Roddy Piper should know. A few months ago, he climbed back into the ring.
What would you have me do at 49 when my pension plan I can't take out till I'm 65? I'm not going to make 65. Let's just face facts, guys.
And sadly, he was right about that, because Roddy Piper died in 2015 at the age of 61.
So everything's doom and gloom and no hope and abandon ye all hope who enter here, right? Well, not necessarily, and that's what Oliver kind of closed things out with in questionable fashion, and this is where I tend to steer away, and that I think this is where a bit of a slant came into play.
So, I guess the question is there any hope here? Well, incredibly, there might be, because there is one group that even McMahon occasionally seems to listen to, and that's the fans. They actually have a strong independent voice in the WWE and have been vocal over the years about everything from the company's dealings with Saudi Arabia to its treatment of female wrestlers who have come a long way from the old days of so-called bra and panty matches. In fact, fans online launched a hashtag Give Divas a Chance campaign to feature women more prominently, to which Vince himself responded, "We hear you, keep watching." And next week, for the first time ever, WrestleMania will be headlined by a women's match. So wrestling fans don't just go along with whatever the company tells them to cheer and boo. They know what they like, and just as importantly, what they don't like. For instance, the WWE tried for years, literally years, to make Roman Reigns a superstar hero on the level of The Rock. But fans just didn't like him, and they let him and the WWE know about that.
Now here's where I distance myself with Oliver, and that I see the point that they were going for, but the clip that they utilized was definitely not indicative of the whole WWE universe. This was the extreme of an isolated incident, as the clip that they had played was highlights of Roman Reigns the night after WrestleMania 33 in front of the most hardcore wrestling fans in the world, because they all flew in for WrestleMania, and they were booing the ever-living daylights out of Roman Reigns after he had beaten The Undertaker the night before. And that was the night, as I'm sure you remember, where they booed him for 8 minutes straight, along with a litany of different chants in between, as wrestling fans, especially those hardcore ones, during Mania Week and Mania Weekend, tend to do. I mean, everything from Bleep You Roman to Go Away, and the New Day type chant, as well as Roman sucks. They also called him a particular body part that, CM Punk used thanks to the Z-Packs, as we had alluded to earlier. There were a few other less than savory chants that were thrown in there as well, and that, I think, is where they went a little bit off base, in that, Roman is definitely a lot more popular than that, especially after the coming back from leukemia thing. I think that was just a little extreme on the other end of it. Now, a lot of other statements and facts that were in here. I mean, yes, there's a not so nice case that's presented against WWE, but, well, WWE, they issued a counter statement, and WWE's rebuttal statement was essentially telling John Oliver in a corporate way that he sits on a throne of lies. Here was the WWE response statement to all of that. They said, quote, "John Oliver is clearly a clever and humorous entertainer. However, the subject matter covered in his WWE segment is no laughing matter. Prior to airing, WWE responded to his producers, refuting every point in his one-sided presentation. John Oliver simply ignored the facts. The health and wellness of our performers is the single most important aspect of our business, and we have a comprehensive, long-standing talent wellness program. We invite John Oliver to attend WrestleMania this Sunday to learn more about our company," end quote. So they basically dropped the fake news on John Oliver's whole piece there. That was their response. It's like that reggae song from the 90s, what was it, Shaggy, It Wasn't Me. Owen falling from the ceiling, wasn't me. Wrestlers dying from steroids, wasn't me. Oh, wrestlers numb with no feeling, wasn't me. Yeah, I got nowhere to go after that. That pretty much is almost as good as Randy Savage's rap album. Yeah, it shows you how not good that was. All right, we're going to take care of our first time out here because it's long overdue. We're going to get into predictions starting to go wrong, other news and notes from things stemming out of WrestleMania weekend here, and a whole bunch more. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Hi, this is Dr. Lee Piccarello, inviting you to tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. to The Head Game, a must-listen show for athletes and coaches of all levels and ages. Mindful Athlete Training in Newtown, Pennsylvania is a mental circuit training program that prepares the athletes to perform at the highest level of today's game. Athletes get into the zone faster and stay there longer. Tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. right here on WBCB 1490 AM and throughout the world at WBCB1490.com.
I'm Harvey from Bernie Robbins Jewelers. April showers bring 40% off engagement diamonds and 50% off mountings. What, you thought May flowers? No, bridal showers. It's the annual Bernie Robbins Bridal Sale, April 5th and 6th at all 4 Bernie Robbins locations, featuring millions of dollars of GIA-graded diamonds. All this and interest-free financing. Get details at BernieRobbins.com. Oh, and a word to the wise, guys, bring your love to this event or get used to taking cold showers.
All commentators heard on WBCB express their own views. Their opinions are not necessarily those of others on WBCB, including the staff and management.
Allison is perfect. I mean, she'd never tell you that. She's humble and perfect. She likes everyone. She even likes her untidy roommate's weird guinea pig. Allison, wait, are you texting and driving? Allison, no. That's the exact opposite of what I was just saying about you. Why, Allison? Why? Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopRex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You need a plan as you get closer to retirement, a plan that will take you from where you are now to the retirement you've always dreamed about. The first step on that path is to tune in What's Your Wealth Strategy Show with Mark Freed every Saturday morning at 8:30. Mark's the president of TFG Wealth Management. You only retire once, but Mark helps people retire every day. Don't miss the What's Your Wealth Strategy Show with Mark Freed every Saturday morning at 8:30 on 1490 WBCB.
What script? We got rid of it, remember?
Yeah, oh yeah, you crumbled it up. Wait, no, it's in the waste bucket. I don't know why I just called it a waste bucket. I've been watching too much British television. And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your hosts, Fearon Derry and Lucas DeSangro. No, sorry, that's the rubbish bin. It's in the
Where most of your jokes go.
Yes. Yes. Oh.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here with you, flying solo as Mitch has the day off and Twitch is up in North Jersey and has been for most of the week doing various things for Capital Wrestling. Now, I don't want things to seem all doom and gloom after what we were talking about with the whole John Oliver thing, and it was even brought to my attention during the break, hey, this isn't exactly new news, as this is stuff that was done back in 2003 by HBO and Real Sports, so it seems like low-hanging fruit, in a sense, on the wrestling news vernacular, but I guess the fact of the matter is, if things haven't really changed, if there hasn't been any improvement since that was brought to light back 16 years ago, obviously it needs to be brought to attention to attempt to make some sort of a change, unless the overall mindset is, well, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, deal with it, suck it up, and other disparaging alpha-type statements. Now, not that I want to stick on this alpha concept any longer than I have to, but there was another piece of news that came this week that, well, it certainly has an effect regarding alpha entertainment, as it certainly paves the way for that quote that we, well, for better or worse, are going to be longing to hear next year.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the XFL!
Yes, this has something to do with the XFL, although in this case it has to do with the, I guess you could say now, former rival? Yes, the Alliance of American Football announced on Wednesday that it was immediately suspending operations just a little over 8 weeks after the league started. Employees and players were notified in a letter on Tuesday afternoon that gave no reason for the ending of the inaugural season, only that the decision was made after careful consideration. Now, we did mention that there were some challenges and that the AAF was trying to work with the NFL Players Association and the union and owners and everything else with the National Football League to possibly be a minor league, in a sense, to help be a farm system, almost like minor league baseball is to the major leagues, for professional football. And things weren't exactly going well with that. But the added, dare I say, field goal kick between the legs was that, along with the notification, players were forced to pay for their own travel back home to wherever they were. So if you were playing in Atlanta and you lived out in California, hey, that flight is on you. The team ain't paying for that. And by the way, we're not paying you for anything else either because we're folding up shop. Goodbye. That's a great way to go about things. But how this affects the XFL is, well, people are immediately thinking, all right, well, the XFL only lasted one season, and that was back in 2001, and now the AAF didn't even make it a full season as it lasted 8 weeks. Here's why I think, and this is maybe me playing a little bit of devil's advocate, and considering how some people compare Vince McMahon to the devil, that's not too far of a stretch. But here's my devil's advocate argument as to what gives the XFL a much better chance than the AAF did. Simply ratings markets. As I'm sure you know, with Nielsen ratings, we talk about those all the time with Raw and SmackDown, things of that nature, that there are different sectors of the country that are larger and have more viewers, and they have them divided up into, 210 markets or something like that. And in looking at the Alliance of American Football, the 8 teams that were in the AAF, the highest market that they had was number 10 in the nation with Atlanta, Georgia. And then it just goes down from there. Then you have number 12, which was Tempe, Arizona, part of the Phoenix market. I mean, they played in Tempe, but they were considered Arizona. Yeah, you get the idea. Then number 18 is next in Orlando, Florida. Then you have San Diego, California at 29. Salt Lake City, Utah is 30. San Antonio, Texas is 31. And then rounding out the bottom 2, Birmingham, Alabama at 43 and Memphis, Tennessee at 51. So those are the 51st largest market in the country. Yeah, you're not getting a lot of eyes necessarily on the product. And you notice that of all those teams, there was nothing really in the North and East to be heard. Now compare that to the 8 teams that are in the XFL market. All 8 teams that are in the XFL are within the top 21 markets in the United States. So they're within the top 21 largest. So you start off at the bottom with St. Louis, Missouri. That's at 21 and the only one outside of the top 15. Then you shoot up, the next lowest is Seattle, Washington at 13 in the country, the 13th largest market. Then you have Tampa Bay, which is the 11th largest market. That's 3 teams out of the 8 that are outside of the top 10. So obviously, by doing the math, that means the other 5 are in the top 10. So then you go to number 7, Houston, Texas. Number 6, Washington, D.C. You have the 5th largest market in Dallas, Texas. And then you have number 2, Los Angeles, and number 1, New York. And that rounds out your top 8. So you're going to have potentially, and the key word there is potentially, more eyes on the XFL product, because if nothing else, in those home cities that are going to have a rooting interest for a team, you've got New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston, and Washington, D.C. are all in the top 10. That is the potential for millions more viewers than what the AAF. Now, despite the low numbers for the AAF, their ratings had been fairly consistent between 400,000 and 500,000 viewers tuning in for the games, according to various ratings reports. And the league had a little bit of a bump in attention last month after, disgraced former NFL quarterback Johnny Manziel had signed into the AAF and was allocated to Memphis. It's hard to say. Will the XFL be able to top 1 million viewers each week? Or will it be like it was back in 2001, where there'll be an initial surge, an initial buzz, and then by week 2, it will just gradually start to drop off and disappear into oblivion? Now, I know there's still a whole lot to go over with the WrestleMania card, and we're going to get to that in our final segment. Just want to kind of bounce around and take a look at some other news and notes that have gone on over the course of the WrestleMania week here, including a few different moves and signings and things of that nature here, including Tenille Dashwood, who announced this past Sunday that she is a free agent and leaving Ring of Honor. She had tweeted, quote, "Free agent, happy, healthy, and healed." Now, what she means by that is she had been sidelined by a shoulder injury since late June of last year, but she did continue to appear on television, most recently as a member of the Lifeblood faction. So I'm sure here it comes. Let the speculation of All Elite Wrestling or AEW begin. Oh, is that where she's going to go? Well, there is one person who did make their way over to AEW, All Elite Wrestling, announcing a groundbreaking 3-year deal with legendary commentator Jim Ross, generally considered to be the greatest pro wrestling announcer of all time. Yeah, I know there are going to be some old school folks who will say Gordon Soley, and we'll have that discussion another day. Effective immediately, Ross will take on the role of senior advisor in what is the most lucrative deal in pro wrestling commentary history, though terms weren't disclosed. Ross's first in-ring appearance for AEW will be at Double or Nothing, that highly anticipated event on Saturday, May 25th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, and he'll also be working closely with the senior leaders at AEW on their roadmap to shift and reinvent the wrestling landscape. And yes, that came from their press release. Now, other signing news, according to Mike Johnson of PWInsider.com, Jimmy and Jey Uso have re-signed with WWE, and in other similar fate on a different company, Rob Van Dam will be working for Impact Wrestling Beyond Thursday's United We Stand event. He had told SportingNews.com, quote, "It looks like you are going to be seeing my face around for the foreseeable future. We have an agreement to where I will be sticking after the show on Thursday. It does have a beginning and an end, but they can extend, so this is something to start us off. I had agreed to one match, and then we had talked about and discussed doing their upcoming tapings after the show on Thursday and a couple of television tapings over the next few months. We looked at the schedule moving forward, and they asked if I was available. I told them I was. We will see how it goes. It's a pretty friendly schedule, which has always been important to me. I want to be home more and on the road less." And with Impact, that's certainly something that you'll be able to do, although the trade-off to that is not necessarily as many viewers on the product as one of the bigger detractions that I've heard regarding the pre-taped shows is, well, I can just go and look on the internet and see what happens, and I don't have to watch it because I already know what's going to happen. So you're going to have people who will give that detraction as opposed to that must-see, going to happen live type thing. I mean, look at it this way. It's almost like DVRing. It's just people are putting things up that didn't DVR it. It's almost like, having to avoid the internet for spoilers in a sense when it comes to these. It's just with the tapings, it's not necessarily taped and then a few hours later it airs. These are things that are taped weeks in advance, and given today's landscape of things, well, I can't imagine somebody holding off on the internet for weeks at a time just to avoid taping spoilers for something along those lines. Yeah, no, I mean, some people can't even avoid the internet during this show. That's right, Twitch isn't here to defend himself. But he would probably acknowledge it, more than likely. Anyway, in other stuff over the weekend here, the final inductee for the WWE Hall of Fame, which is going to be airing tonight on the WWE Network, has been announced. And that's right, he is going to be strutting and cutting his way to the Hall of Fame, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Yes, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, because he and best friend Terry Hulk Hogan Bollea have been pretty much attached at the hip for their entire careers going back to the 70s. Hulk Hogan is going to be the one inducting Beefer into the Hall of Fame. Now, in terms of titles, at least in the WWE or WCW, he only held the tag titles on one occasion, and that was part of the Dream Team with Greg the Hammer Valentine. But he was, for a while, a contender, was poised to win the Intercontinental Championship back in 1988, before an injury had occurred thanks to a feud with Outlaw Ron Bass, who busted open the Barber with his spur, the spur on his boot, and that laceration kept Beefcake out of that title match, and the Warrior ended up getting it, the Ultimate Warrior, and he ended up winning the Intercontinental title. And then just as things were moving along and he was going to get back into the fray, that was when in 1990 he had that parasailing accident that took him out of action for 2 years. The parasailer friend was helping them prepare for takeoff. The driver of the boat mistook a cue to take off and pulled the friend's bare feet hard into Leslie's face, crushing various parts of his face, and over 100 metal plates were needed to put it together, and he wouldn't see the ring again until probably about 2.5 years later, but in the meanwhile was on TV doing the infamous barbershop interview segment, which is probably best known for when Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the Rockers, would split up on that interview segment. But yes, just like that, time flies when you're having fun, so we're going to take care of our second time out here, and we're going to come back and take a look at the WrestleMania card, give our predictions certain to go wrong. Also, we've got the birthdays and Today in Wrestling History, all the other good stuff here to close things out here on Pro Wrestling Weekly on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Are you a parrot head? Not that kind. That's more like it. If you're this kind of parrot head, don't forget to check out the Denny O Polka Show every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon right here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Hi, this is Smiling Lou Powers, here to invite you to join us every Wednesday as we broadcast Sunshine Music Memories live from the Philadelphia Protestant home in the Northeast. We'll be playing the music that you remember in a setting you will love. Philadelphia Protestant home is located at 6500 Tabor Road in the Northeast, and I will be there live every Wednesday, 10 a.m. till noon. Come out and listen, dance, and make some new friends. Sunshine Music Memories live from the Philadelphia Protestant home every Wednesday at 10 a.m.
You won't see termites crawling across your floor, but thousands might be devouring the wood in your walls, weakening the structure of your home. For over 50 years, termite proofing and pest control of the Delaware Valley has been in the exterminating business. If you think you have a pest problem, they're the experts. Call them today at 215-639-5455. That's 215-639-5455 for TPPC. Termite proofing and pest control of the Delaware Valley gives your home or business peace of mind, knowing your pest problem is in their hands. Located at 1560 Bristol Pike in Bensalem, they use only EPA-approved material applied by licensed technicians. Call Termite Proofing and Pest Control of the Delaware Valley at 215-639-5455.
Tasty Cake would like to salute you, the great sports fans of Philadelphia. Whether your team is up or down, there's one winner you always count on: Tasty Cake. With fan favorites like candy cakes, crimpets, mini donuts, and our famous pies, Tasty Cake has been Philly's ticket to Major League goodness for over 100 years. Find Tasty Cake treats at a store near you, for yourself, for your team, and just for the fun of it. Tasty Cake.
Pro Wrestling Weekly presents Today in Wrestling History, April 6th. On this date in 1997, WCW held its Spring Stampede pay-per-view. In the main event, Diamond Dallas Page pinned Randy Savage in a no disqualification match. On this date in 2009, WWE Monday Night Raw aired live from Houston, Texas. In the main event, Mr. McMahon fought Randy Orton to a no contest. On this date in 2014, WWE held its WrestleMania 30 pay-per-view. In the main event, Daniel Bryan defeated Batista and Randy Orton in a triple threat match to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. This has been Today in Wrestling History, April 6th.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com, or at least for this week, Pro Wrestlemania Weekly. As yes, WrestleMania is tomorrow. We've had all kinds of excitement over the course of the week, and it's going to continue on through till Tuesday up in the New York metropolitan area. But I do have to give a little bit of love to a local entity here in Philadelphia, and actually a former guest here on the show, the golden voice of professional wrestling, Stefan T. Benson. Well, what he went and did, it was a contest that WWE had based on their 2K19 video game on the Xbox and PlayStation systems. And basically you had to go through this online contest and face these 15 different opponents and beat them, and once you did that, you achieved some sort of a trophy achievement, and then from there you had to cut a promo that you would submit as to why you would beat AJ Styles in 2K19. And, well, from there, it was submitted. There were finalists who were chosen, and they faced off against one another, and the winner, well, they would go on to take on AJ Styles, and if they beat Styles, which this occurred last night during the pre-show of NXT TakeOver, that, well, the winner would get $1 million. As he was one of the 4 semifinalists, he ended up going on and faced off against AJ Styles, and, well, here is the closing moments of that match.
And he wins $1 million. Be happy for that, yeah?
Well, now you can do something else in your mom's basement.
Hey, you're looking at the winner, the golden voice of sports entertainment, Stephon Benson, here live in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm doing it big, baby. Unmatched, unbeaten. They couldn't see me. I took them to Suplex City. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can stop me.
We all know the reason for this, right?
Congratulations, Stephon.
Thank you.
The winner of $1 million in the WWE 2K Challenge. And Brooklyn, let them know what you think.
I could still suck, but I'm still rich, unlike all of you.
Now, obviously not able to be seen, you should definitely go back and check the video out on this, but the look on Xavier Woods' face, who he is a part of all this, I mean, it's run through his Up, Up, Down, Down channel and everything as far as the video game and wrestling connection had a huge part to do with this. But Xavier Woods' face, one with the promo that Stephon was cutting, almost like a victory-type promo, and kind of pointing along with the crowd as they were chanting at him, "You still suck, you still suck." And as if that wasn't bad enough, the look on his face when Stephon gave that last line of "I'm still rich, unlike all of you," it was like he wasn't expecting somebody to have that kind of a sharp comeback, and it floored me in the same way that I think it floored Xavier and everybody else who was there. And who would have thought that you can win $1 million playing a video game? Only WWE, right? So that's just some of what's leading up to the weekend here, but let's go ahead and get to the predictions certain to go wrong. Now, I'll give you mine here, as I haven't quite received them via text from Lucas yet, and Mitch is still pontificating, as it's certainly a huge decision. But looking at the card here, we've got 16 matches, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Okay, maybe not something quite like that, but maybe if you bought one of those front row seats to Mania that was upwards of $2,500, that'd certainly be deeper in debt. But that notwithstanding, let's take a look here. We've got 3 different kickoff matches in this marathon of an event. You've got Buddy Murphy defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Tony Nese, as he had won the Cruiserweight tournament that led up the number 1 contender tournament, I should say, and they get stuck on the pre-show. I feel like I kind of saw that coming weeks ago and might have even said it here on the show, but nonetheless, I have a feeling that all of that's going to be for naught and Murphy is still going to retain. Then you have the 2 Battle Royals. For the men, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and for the women, the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal, definitely not named after the fabulous Moolah. And a litany of different competitors who are going to be in it, including in the men's variety, 2 of the hosts of Saturday Night Live, or 2 of the presenters, Michael Che and Colin Jost. But I think in the end, this is got to be Strowman's Battle Royal, right? It's pretty much been featured about him. Most of the other competitors are various tag team members, and you don't usually see something like that unless you want to have Matt Hardy win it again. But I doubt that'll be the case. And one little interesting bit of trivia with the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So far, there is just 1 competitor who has been involved in all 6, soon-to-be 7, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royals since it debuted at WrestleMania 30. Who is it? Well, I'll let you know towards the end of the predictions here, give you a chance to think and pontificate on it. But yes, my pick is going to be Braun Strowman, and then for the Women's Battle Royal, I think given that Asuka was the SmackDown Women's Champion and supposed to defend her title, but things ended up changing thanks to the triple threat main event, that I think this might be Asuka's consolation prize in winning the Women's WrestleMania Battle Royal. So I'm going to go with Asuka on that one. Now moving on to the main part of the show, which is going to be for quite a lengthy period of time. You've got the Battle of the Houses in the house that Orton built versus the house that AJ Styles built, in a sense. And, well, this has been pretty personal and even a little deeper cuts than you'd see from a lot of the other competitors. A lot more realism, making references. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Orton making references to Styles' past while Orton was in WWE, going through wrestling in gymnasiums and bingo halls, a little bit of a nod to Ring of Honor, and even getting a suntan with Dixie Carter, making a reference to TNA. Why a suntan? I have no idea, but I guess it's, you were in Florida while I was, okay. They can't all be winners, but nonetheless, I think in this case, Orton's the homegrown talent and Styles is the newcomer, and you know how it is with WWE and those coming from the outside. Granted, this is not AJ Styles in polka dots like Dusty Rhodes, but I think Randy Orton's going to take it here. And you've got a Falls Count Anywhere match. Shane McMahon against The Miz, the former Best in the World tag team, colliding. As much as I want to cue up the WrestleMania sacks, now not going to do it here. But as the supposed best in the world explode, it's hard to bet against a McMahon. I got to go with Shane on this one. Although my heart's leaning toward The Miz, I'm going to go with my head on this one because it's hard to bet against a McMahon. Next up, well, something to say goodbye to, the farewell match for Kurt Angle. Notice they never said retirement, they said farewell. I guess that's another verbiage on Vince McMahon's part, just as they don't want to say belt for it or title for a championship. It has to be the championship. It can't be, the belt is what goes on pants. More of that alpha stuff. But yes, Kurt Angle's farewell match, because retirement, that makes us sound old. We don't want to do that. We want to be young and impressionable, so it's his farewell match. Okay, sure, Vince. Anyway, I think Kurt Angle's going to go out on top, get a great send-off, even though with his music, the crowd will still be chanting, "You suck," but that's just, it's what they've been doing for 15 years now. Then to the no-holds-barred match, Triple H and Batista. It's no holds barred, and if Triple H loses, he must retire as an active wrestler. And I think, well, Triple H, he'll be turning the big 5-0 later this year. I don't know. Does that mean time to hang up the trunks and keep the corporate suit on and work on developing NXT and eventually succeeding Vince McMahon when he dies or, well, farewells? Because, again, we don't want to say retires. Yeah, I think that's where that's going. So I think Batista, he gets a little bit of a rub. He goes back to Hollywood, and Triple H, he permanently cements himself into a business behind-the-scenes type role. Or maybe in front of it a little bit too, but not in an in-ring type capacity. Now we're going to switch it up and go to the tag teams. So a fatal four-way match between the Usos, Ricochet, and Aleister Black, The Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro, and the international team of Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Given that I mentioned that the Usos just recently re-signed, I think that also means they keep the titles. Sorry to the other competitors, the Usos get this one. Samoa Joe against Rey Mysterio for the U.S. Championship. Given Mysterio's recent injury woes, I'm thinking go with Samoa Joe on that one. We've also got Bobby Lashley against Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship. Balor will obviously be the crowd favorite. However, the crowd has to boost something at WrestleMania. It can't all be fireworks and celebration and happiness and tears and things of that nature. Happy tears, of course. So I think Lashley wins this one. Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre in a singles match. or given the way everything's gone, it's the How Dare You Boo Leukemia match. So how can you go against Roman Reigns on this one? It's one of those where if you pick against Roman Reigns, you apparently like cancer. I don't know. That's at least what WWE is probably going to make you think on that. Then back to the tag teams. We've got the women's tag team match, the Boston Hug Connection defending the women's tag titles against the Divas of Doom, Natalya and Beth Phoenix, the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, and Nia Jax and Tamina in that fatal four-way. I think the Boston Hug Connection that they will retain on that one. The other tag team championship on the line, the Revival against Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. Yeah, you got to go with the Revival on this one. At least that's what I'm thinking. And now to the three biggies. Seth Rollins challenging Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. Rollins winning the Rumble has been posed as pretty much not having a single chance, but I think that he upends Brock Lesnar and he goes off to doing UFC and whatever else, whatever his next making a lot of money for a little effort venture is. Then you've got the WWE Championship, Daniel Bryan against Kofi Kingston. I think it would be a huge swerve if WWE had Daniel Bryan retain here. Kofi Kingston has gone through too much, and there have been so many subtle racial undertones. So I'm going with Kofi, although we'll see if WWE decides to do with this particular scenario what they did with everything regarding everything that John Oliver talked about earlier this week. Hope that's not the case, though. And then you've got the main event. First time ever, the women are closing the show. It's going to be Ronda Rousey, the Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch in a winner-takes-all match. And while she's lost a little steam since the Royal Rumble, Becky Lynch is still, well, she is the man. And you saw how things erupted on Raw this past week with the arrests and brawls and everything like that. And I'm going with Becky Lynch to take this one and get both titles as the chase will finally come to a culmination, and that'll be your fireworks closing happy moment part of the show. So speaking of closing happy parts of the show, we're just about at that time for us here, so that means that it is time for... Actually, before we get into that last bit, I got to get back to that trivia question. So the one competitor who has been in all of the Andre the Giant Memorial WrestleMania Battle Royals has been none other than the man who's got kids, Heath Slater. He has been in all 6 prior, and he's going to be in this one tomorrow night. Anyway, over to the... And you know what? Neither of them are here. I'm doing it. Birthdays! That's right. I have creative control like that, brother. We've got 1 plus 5 Brucey bonuses. So first, on this date in 1980, Thomas Matera was born, the former WWE Raw competitor known as Antonio Thomas of the Heartthrobs tag team. He turns 39 today. And then to the Brucey bonuses, things outside the world of wrestling. On this date in 1937, William December Williams Jr. was born. The actor best known for his role as Lando Calrissian in the Star Wars film franchise, as well as noted from the movie Brian's Song, known professionally as Billy D. Williams, he turns 82 today. On this date in 1947, John Dezo Ratzenberger was born. The actor best known on the TV series Cheers as Cliff Clavin, as well as doing voice acting, including Ham for the Toy Stories franchise, among others. He turns 72 today. On this date in 1952, Mary Lucy Denise Henner was born. The actress best known for her breakthrough role as Elaine O'Connor Nardo in the sitcom Taxi, better known as Mary Lou Henner, turns 67 today. On this date in 1975, Zachary Israel Braff was born, the actor, director, and screenwriter and producer known for his role as JD on the TV series Scrubs from back in the 2000s decade. He turns 44 today. And finally, on this date in 1976, Candace Helene Cameron was born, the actress probably best known as DJ Tanner from Full House and more recently Fuller House. She turns 43 today. That's going to do it. Enjoy WrestleMania. Tune in next week where we're live at Senator Tommy Tomlinson's Children's Expo. Play us out, Nutsy.
1 o'clock and all's well.
Serving you better than ever before. This is 1490 WBCB 11.